Mr. Lloyd, please go ahead. 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My first question to Chief McFee, something that you said really struck out at me. To reiterate what you said, is it your opinion that some provisions in C-21 will actually could have a negative impact on public safety? You're on mute, sir. I hope that'll be reflected in my time. Thanks.
Got me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yeah, and specifically in relation to the handguns, as stated, and we've heard several times, there's parts of this thing that have actually a lot of sense. But when we're going to actually ban handguns and not focusing on the people pulling the triggers on the enforcement model of some of the things currently existent.
But you agree that it could have a negative impact on public safety?
Absolutely.
Oh,
yes.
Man. Okay, thank you. I know that police have an important role to play in combating domestic violence. Bill C-21 proposes a so-called red flag law that would allow people to apply to the courts for an emergency weapons prohibition order. The police would be enforcing this order. Is that correct?
Yet to be determined. That's
okay.
what we're under the understanding, but yet to be determined.
Thank you. Now, if a domestic abuse victim or someone concerned that a loved one is mentally ill or suicidal comes to the police with a concern over safety where there's a firearm present, do the police take immediate action, including seizing the firearms?
Yes.
If this legislation passes as is, would you, in your professional opinion, recommend that victims go through this new court process or that they contact police directly?
Again, that new court process that we're saying isn't real clear.
But, you know, if there's an emergency situation, should people go to the courts or should they go to the police?
The police. If you're talking about that, absolutely the police.
Do you think that because of the delays that we've heard about, we've seen in the court system, that someone seeking an emergency weapons prohibition order from the court, instead of calling the police immediately in an emergency, is actually putting themselves and possibly others in more danger?
Again, that would be a hypothetical answer, but the possibility does exist.
Do you think that the red flag laws in this legislation are necessary, or are police already enforcing red flag laws in this country?
As mentioned, there's 117.2 of the criminal code. This strengthens that, but I haven't seen exactly how many times across this country 117.2 has been used to date.
Is there any truth to the claim that some people have made that this legislation is necessary to add the courts because police are ignoring the requests of victims?
I have never seen a police service, and you heard it as well from the inspector in BC. This firearms is something that we all take very, very serious, regardless of a handgun or any type of firearm, replica or not. That's a very serious offense that all police services that I'm aware of take action on.
So you don't have any evidence that the police are not currently doing their job enforcing red flag laws?
Correctly, we could do more of it. Again, it goes down to, obviously, as the inspector also mentioned, resources.
Thank you. Mr. Friedman, a key justification for C-21 is to prevent the so-called practice of straw purchasing. Is straw purchasing a widespread practice in this country?
I tell you, particularly when it comes to handguns, which are registered to the licensed owner, it's legal suicide for somebody to buy handguns to divert them to the legal market. They are tied to them both by serial number and registration certificate. And that's why in the homicide and shooting cases that I've done, my colleagues do, police investigate, particularly in the city of Ottawa, but elsewhere, we see illegally smuggled guns into the country as being those handguns which are used in violent crimes.
Do you believe that the current practices that regulate handguns in this country are effective at preventing and deterring straw purchases?
The proof is in the pudding, right? Like I said, it would take a very foolish individual, not just foolish, but once again, who wants to spend years and years in the penitentiary, to sign themselves up to a list, put their name on a government database, and then go and commit a crime which is linked to that database.
Will the prohibition of handgun transfers under C-21 do anything to prevent the purchase, possession, and use of handguns for illegal purposes?
The only thing that it will do, and I echo Chief McFee, I think it's a really important perspective that's being lost here, is it will alienate 2.2 million law-abiding Canadians who were told, license, register your firearms, and you will be able to own them safely and lawfully. Instead, we're going to see less compliance with licensing and a general mistrust driving a wedge between law-abiding citizens and law enforcement who should be close partners in cooperation. So not only will it do nothing because law-abiding citizens and legally owned handguns aren't the problem here, but it could actually jeopardize public safety. And I'm very happy the police are here to give that perspective.
Thank you. C-21 also makes it an offense to alter a magazine to exceed the legal limit of bullets. We all know that it is currently illegal to own a magazine that exceeds the amount of legal bullets. Can you, as a lawyer, explain the ridiculousness of this proposal?
Yeah, and I listened closely to what Inspector Rowe had to say, and it's an interesting perspective. I guess there are competing points of view here. As a criminal defense lawyer, I'm of the view that if something's illegal once, it doesn't have to be illegal twice, 3 or 4 times. It's a crime to possess a prohibited device. A magazine that holds more than the legally permitted number of rounds is a prohibited device. And if people aren't deterred from committing one crime, they're not going to be deterred from committing 2, 3, 4, or 5 crimes. So to me, watching the criminal code get thicker and thicker by the year and not actually addressing the reasons why someone might commit this offense or giving the police the resources to investigate these serious offenses is a real concern. I'd say this. If those offenses do not already form the provisions whereon, as Inspector Rowe said, police can seek authorizations, whether they're search warrants or wiretaps, that's a good place to start. Creating brand new offenses that target existing illegal conduct, to me, seems like a waste of time and energy.
Do you agree with Chief McFee's assessment on the red flag provisions in C-21? Yes or no?
Yes, I think it's an important point that police already take a very active stance when they get public safety complaints about firearms. The concern is that the courts will be flooded with people where their complaints have been investigated by the police and found to be meritless. We don't need more backlog in our courts when the police are already taking extensive enforcement action on firearms public safety concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you.